All right, welcome to the W2W review. I am the Oakland Knight, and joined with me today, as always, is Raider Pirate. What's going on, Pirate?
What's going on, Raider Nation? Big news day.
Big news day today. We're going to start off today by kind of wrapping up the week that was against our matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons and the dismay of our defense. But before we get started, I just want to mention out there that we're going to run the segments today. Segment 1, we're going to talk about Jack Del Rio's press conference, take a little deeper look into that, and see if we could dig out some truth and what he's dancing around. And in the second segment, we're going to talk about some things that are being rumored and thrown out there about some personnel changes. So to get things kicked off, I'm going to kick it over to Pirate. Pirate, what do we got today on Jack Del Rio?
Yeah, so he said some pretty interesting things today. I think he said some things that, if you kind of read between the lines a little bit and you kind of just dig a little bit deeper, peel that layer of the onion, as you're so fond of saying. If you peel that layer of the onion back a little bit, he's given a little bit of information out. He's dancing around the subject, but he is giving a little bit of information out that,
correct,
again, could be pure speculation, or it could, as you begin to see these things continue to mount, it could actually start leading to some credible information. So let's go ahead and listen to what he says at the first part of the interview here.
We seek to win 2 out of the 3 phases each week. Typically we'll add up to a win, and we didn't get that done yesterday. So we didn't get it done yesterday, and that's to get the win and get to 2-0. So anyway, we've made our corrections as a staff. We'll look forward to meeting with our guys tomorrow and moving on to next week. No questions.
I know you didn't want to answer this yesterday, but will you take over some of the defensive play calling duties?
Well, priority number 1 for our staff is to make sure that we get our eyes where they belong with our players. And who sends the call in is not what's most important. Priority number 1 has to be getting our guys to stop having eye violations. I mean, get your eyes where they belong and do your job.
So, I mean, he comes out of the gate with, hey, look, we've got to win in all 3 phases of the game. And we only got 2 phases, and so we didn't come out with the win. Defense obviously dropped the ball. But she comes out and she asks him, right after that, hey, I know you didn't want to talk about this yesterday after the game. It was a little bit heated, but are you going to be calling the plays? Are you going to take away the play calling from Ken Norton Jr.? And his answer is very, very political. He basically turns from answering the question to saying something that he's answering a different kind of question, right? A redundancy, correct, pretty much. So instead of saying yes or no, instead of putting it to rest right here at the beginning of the press conference, he basically goes into this eye violation thing, which again, I don't understand. That's for me, my eyes can be in the right place, but if I'm being blocked out of a play because of poor execution, poor scheme, whatever it is, it doesn't matter where my eyes are. If these guys are getting on us and they're taking advantage of some of the mistakes that we have and the weaknesses that we have, I could be free of eye violations all day, and still this team could be running all over us.
No, exactly. The way that I look at it, too, is, your eyes could be in the right place, but I could care less about your eyes. Your body better be in the right place. If your eyes are in the wrong place and your body's in the wrong place, then it's more of an issue, right? To me, he's dancing around some of the problems that he knows that he sees. And if he calls it out the way that he totally sees it, then he's going to start throwing people under the bus. So I think he's in protective mode right now. He's trying to keep the locker room, and he's not trying to call not only players out, but he's also not trying to call Norton out on some of the things that are going on schematically.
Yeah, let's listen here.
Simply, demand it, find out the why, make sure that we're teaching. I think All good staffs pride themselves on being teachers, so it's not a lack of effort. The guys are giving great effort. They're trying really hard, but we need to get to the bottom of why the eyes aren't where they need to be so that we can just play together. And, when you don't play together, you don't fit it right, then all of a sudden, really a basic run that should be stuff for no gain or a yard or two at the most turns into a 16-yard, run through your secondary. And we just simply have to close it and close that up, and we will.
Once again, the question is posed, how is it that you're going to change this? You stated at the beginning of the press conference, you've met with your defense, you guys have made your adjustments. To come out and say that we're just going to demand it of our players and, we just have to fix it, we got to close it up. That's something that you hear week in and week out from coaches that just don't have the ability to do that. I don't see this as being a situation where you can just go in there and demand it from your guys and get them to close it this week. Otherwise, you wouldn't be making wholesale personnel changes. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but again, it kind of seems like it's a way of dancing around the subject. Hey, look, we picked the wrong players. We put them in the wrong position. We've had a lot of time through the preseason, the OTAs, and, these first couple of games, and it's just not right. And, we're not exactly sure what to do about it.
No, exactly. For me, translation is simple. It's a personnel issue, right? Let's just demand it from our players. Well, the players that you have on the field ain't getting the job done. So what you're trying to avoid is personally attacking certain individuals that are not getting the job done, that's opening holes across the defense. It kind of goes back to where, look at where your eyes are at, right? Well, if Heaney's not doing his job, because I'm not afraid to call it out, if Heaney's not doing his job, then Reggie Nelson is forced to look over to where Heaney's supposed to be to see where he needs to react to go cover Heaney instead of doing his job, which is covering the backside of Sean Smith. So translation for me is pretty simple. It's a personnel issue. There's a couple of key things going on here that we need to change the personnel up on, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the second segment, but that's the translation for me.
Yeah.
No huddle yesterday, was that a factor?
It could be. I mean, obviously the guys, we do our share of that with our own offense. We've had plenty of work at it. There are a lot of different alibis that are possible. I'm not really interested in alibis. For us, we're looking for answers. We're all accountable. It starts with me. I laid that out there yesterday. And we'll work hard at it. We'll get this thing, heading in the right direction on defense. And, there's some good things going on right now.
So, and then once again, he's going to get into kind of deflecting it with humor, saying to, talk to Will Kiss about this. He saw a lot of good things. I didn't. But, once again, the bottom line is, what is it that you're saying here? The tempo of the game, these guys were running the ball quickly against you. The defense seemed out of sorts. They weren't exactly able to make the adjustments they needed to make on the fly. And in a little bit here, the question is going to come up, was the play calling too fast? This is something fundamentally, I think, once again, that's going to have to change.
Absolutely. I think the fundamentals of play calling is just as important as the fundamentals of actually playing within the system. So, again, pointing the finger at Ken Norton, but not wanting to really say Ken Norton.
Right.
At home when we're on defense, because we know we're going to do that in defense. So, no, we're going to continue to do the things we know we need to do to prepare. So it's really not a matter of, again, we're not looking for alibis. That'd be an alibi. Get your job done.
Is it the calls getting up fast enough? Is that what you're working at all? Or the players getting the calls?
Yeah, I think it's a shared responsibility. That's why I say, priority one for us to make sure our guys have their eyes right, have the call on time, all those things, all shared. We're all in it together, and we'll get it turned around.
So getting back to my original question, is that a yes or a no, or you guys are going to both call?
No. There's not going to be any proclamation made today. I think for us, it's about us. It's a collective effort. We all share in it, and so no, I'm not going to throw any one person under the bus. It's not any one person that's at fault here. We collectively as a group, we have to pick it up. We have to do our share.
So once again, he comes back to that point of it being
Correct.
a collective issue. And I'm going to go back to this once more. If you get rid of these talking points at the beginning of a conversation, if you're up in front of a group of people and they're asking you some questions and you're able to shut down that process, if you're able to say, look, I'm the head coach, he's the defensive coordinator. I'm here to help him out, give him any support that he needs whatsoever. But I have full trust in what it is that he's doing at this point. We know that there are some things that are going on. He's asked me for my opinion. I've talked to him about a few things, but he is absolutely the one who will be calling plays, and I have full faith in him. You don't have to keep coming back to this in the form of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different types of questions by different types of reporters. Everybody's looking for the same thing. Tell us you're going to demote him. Tell us you're going to throw him under the bus. Now, while he's saying I'm not going to throw him under the bus, what he is doing is basically keeping the door wide open. And in the court of public opinion, basically he's saying, I'm not going to say that I'm going to do it, but I think we all know that I'm also not saying that I'm not going to do it. And that therein lies the problem. If you look at great defensive coordinators or even really, really good defensive coordinators, it is not a collective thing that they're doing. Yes, the head coach is going to be involved in the overall game plan, but in terms of the play calling, very rarely do you see somebody have the play calling stripped from them as a collective process. And once that happens, basically it pretty much signals the end, at least in what was occurring at that particular point. I've seen very few instances where you can come back a year or two later and say, yeah, that was a rough time, but we got through it and I was able to grow. Football, there's a lot of ego. You got to believe in yourself. And when things get taken away from you like that, it could be detrimental to the football team.
Absolutely. There's no such thing as shared responsibility, in my opinion. Unless you guys are completely on the same page, which it's obvious to me that they are not. It's one thing to say that Jack is fully on board and understands what Ken Norton is putting together, but we've already talked about there's obviously a difference in philosophy. I believe that he's given that responsibility to Ken Norton, and it falls on Ken Norton. This is just a way for him to say, I'm going to take some heat off Norton. We need to adjust some things. It's going to be me taking over, but shared responsibility is fine when you're completely on the same page and you guys can read each other's minds in an instant. And I don't see that being the case here in this situation. I think it's a difference of philosophy from head coach to defensive coordinator. Again, you're looking at a translation here of trying to keep the locker room together by not talking about certain aspects of what's going on the field as far as play calling and whatnot. Yes, it's a personnel issue. He brought that up again. And then the other part is who's calling the plays. If you're going to put total faith into Ken Norton, you absolutely say, oh, that's Ken's job. Ken will be calling the plays. He's the defensive coordinator. I'm the head coach. I manage everything. I got my hands in a little bit of everything. He's not saying that here. He's saying, well, it's a collective effort. And he's basically saying, I am going to have more hands-on, but if I say that outright and throw Ken under the bus, I could mess up my locker room. So we're gradually going to do it my way without putting it out there that Ken is an issue right now. Okay, guys, that's going to wrap up segment 1. I think we got the gist of what Jack is getting at here. The bottom line is there is something going on schematically. There's something going on play calling wise, and most definitely there's something going on personnel wise. And we're going to get into that in segment number 2. So stay tuned.
Carpets is celebrating the holidays with a huge inventory clearance sale. We have the best prices and guaranteed installation. Why would you buy anywhere else? Whether you're looking for laminate, vinyl, carpet, tile, or wood, we have it all. Save up to 50% on selected items. Room size rugs, only $69. Visit Carpets at one of our 6 Bay Area locations or call us at 1-800-355-4MMM.
All right, welcome back to the W2W Review. I'm the Oakland Knight, joined by the Raider Pirate. In segment 1, we kind of talked a little bit about what Jack was attempting to say in his press conference. Now we're going to talk a little bit, speculation as of right now anyway, but A lot of signs are pointing to some of these personnel changes. So, Pirate, what do you got for us as far as speculated personnel changes moving forward?
Yeah, well, there's actually been several sources, including Coach Del Rio himself, that have said that certain players are going to be seeing more time. Whether or not they come out in the starting lineup or not remains to be seen. But we do know that we're going to be seeing more of Cory James, less of Ben Heaney, and more of Karl Joseph. And I would imagine that would mean less of McGill. And we may be also seeing more of Nate Allen. And there's also some speculation right now, although this hasn't been confirmed by either the coaching staff. This is just something that's been going around in some of the blogging groups, that DJ Hayden is actually going to be starting opposite David Amerson. So these things are all very, very interesting. To me, they don't solve the bedrock of the problem, which is what's happening on that defensive line. But they are encouraging things because I think they add more speed, more power, the ability to probably not get pushed out of plays and get off blocks a little bit better than what it is that we've been seeing here over the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely, and I think a good place to start would probably be with the most speculated change, which would be DJ Hayden starting opposite David Amerson. The Raider Nation, I mean, I know a lot of people in the Raider Nation, fan-wise, are done with DJ Hayden, even up to this point, even with his play in the slot. So it's going to be interesting if they make that move. Me personally, if you're going to keep the guy on the roster and you're going to make him a part of the starting unit, at least as far as the nickel package goes, this would essentially fully be his last shot, right? You put him in this big role, you try to utilize his feet work and his speed. I personally think at this point it's the right call. Does it stick? We'll have to wait and see. He does get a lot of penalties, but I think at this point we're going to need some extra speed on the outside, protecting from these receivers and making it a little easier for Reggie Nelson moving forward. Your thoughts, Pirate?
Yeah, I mean, look, as bad as DJ Hayden has been, I don't think he's been as bad as David Amerson has been. I think Sean Smith has been.
Correct.
You know, he's getting pass interference calls and things like that. But this is a guy that they brought in when Sean Smith just couldn't get it done out there. There's a couple of things that I really like about what's going on here. They needed more deep speed. They're going to have to go more to, if they were going to keep Smith in there, that means you're going to have to try to keep Nelson closer to the line of scrimmage than you would ideally if you were operating in the single high, because he's going to have to be coming over to help out with Sean Smith. So you're either going to have to put both your safeties back and play both your safeties in quarters of the field. So you'd have one safety on the left, one safety on the right, and now they'd be taking quarters, right, of the field. And you can't really do that if you're trying to protect a guy like Sean Smith, because he doesn't have that deep speed. Now, again, we talked about it yesterday. When you don't have deep speed on the corner and you no longer have deep speed out in the secondary, and you're asking that secondary guy to come up and play closer to the line of scrimmage, you're creating a bunch of different holes. The linebackers, everybody's going to end up having to cover more ground. So I like this move. I think that DJ's got the type of speed where he doesn't consistently need help over the top. He's going to make some pass interference calls, but I can live with that as opposed to just getting beat, constantly. And I think Sean Smith in time can adjust to this defense. I don't think that this is this guy's a bust and he's got to go. I just think right now in time, Sean Smith will adjust to this defense.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. And I believe that DJ Hayden gives us the best opportune time right now to put him in there. You know, we play in a league where you got to take advantage of your opportunities. And this is an opportunity for DJ Hayden to write his own ship, to rewrite his own story. So we'll see how that all plays out. He's had a great camp, a great mini camp. And yes, he's struggling with the penalties again, but that in time could smooth over. At least that's what we're hoping for moving forward. The other interesting thing, and I personally believe that this almost should have been the case from the get-go. If not Karl Joseph, at least Nate Allen. They placed Keith McGill in a starting role, and you talk about preseason, and you talk a lot about well, you're playing against second team, third team units. Keith McGill was a guy that was playing against a lot of third stringers, and I guess he had some great strings in practice where he really performed. And when they watched him on tape, they liked his side, his speed, his aggressiveness. But I don't think they gave him an opportune time inside preseason to really see how he fit with a Reggie Nelson. So, in my opinion, it should have started off at least with Nate Allen, if not Karl Joseph. So the fact that Karl Joseph is going to be implemented in now, whether he's a starter or not, I think we could see some payoff there because he does have good ball instinct and speed himself, and he's a hard hitter. Your thoughts, Pirate?
Yeah, it's another head scratcher. I mean, we see Nate Allen play during the preseason, and he plays really, really well. Obviously, he outplays the other safeties that we have on the roster, and then he gets scratched for McGill. Doesn't again, coaching staff, I think that is trying to be too cute and too clever. I can understand what you're trying to do. We're coming out against Drew Brees. We don't want to break this kid. Obviously he's overrunning some plays. Maybe he has eye violations. Again, I'm not exactly sure. I think I know what it means, but it's just the first time I've heard the term eye violations. So maybe he's got those eye violations. He's overrunning plays. I saw him do that a lot in the preseason. But this kid, he's a punisher. He can hit. He's small, but he's got range. He's got speed. He's got playmaking ability. They're not getting any turnovers, so why not put somebody out there that's going to do it? Like I said, I can understand why you don't want to do it against Drew Brees. I think you should have brought him in the Atlanta game. And again, Jack Del Rio saying, yeah, I don't know why well, you're the coach, Jack. Make the call, right? Make the call.
Correct.
This is what we're talking about. Get that guy on the field. Make the adjustments in game. So yeah, no, I like this one as well.
And again, Jack Del Rio also said it's a collective effort. We all go do it together. It's a team type atmosphere here. Well, Jack, you just said it yourself. Why didn't you make that call? It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So as we move forward, I think the biggest move that we're going to see, and this is the one that I'm probably the most excited about, is Cory James getting more of an opportunity. Ben Heaney, I'm not going to use the word bust because I believe that Ben Heaney is a playmaker, but with his undersized attack at the defensive line, through the defensive line to get to the running back, and his inability to really drop back in coverage and protect the middle of that field, I'm excited to see the unexperienced Cory James because he brings something different to the table. What is your thoughts about them, giving Cory James more snaps?
It's a mixed bag. I mean, like I said, I feel fundamentally that this defense is struggling from the defensive line outward. I think, the inability to get pressure is creating problems. Their inability to stuff the run lanes, like Jack was saying, is creating problems. I think from a defensive line perspective, they don't have an identity. They're not exactly sure what it is that they're trying to do. That then stresses out the linebackers because it forces you to cover more ground contested as opposed to being uncontested. Ask any linebacker whether or not he wants to try to make a tackle uncontested or contested, and I guarantee you that most of them, 99.9% of the non-sadistic ones, are going to tell you, hey, if I can make a tackle, in the open field uncontested, I'll take it. So you got these guys now running around trying to get around guards, trying to get off plays. That's creating bigger holes. The secondary, it's just creating problems all around. So in my opinion, I think, yes, we absolutely do need more size, more speed at that position. Ben Heaney, unfortunately, was just being run out of plays left and right, and just is not the player for the middle of this particular defense. Reminds me a lot of I forget the guy's name, Miles Burris. When Burris was playing on the outside, he did such a great job. They tried to put him into the middle of the defense. Not so great anymore. So yeah, I'm excited about this as well. I really hope that this kid kind of just gets in there and plays some football, doesn't let it get away from him. It doesn't become too big for him. But again, I mean, it's not working. It doesn't matter what types of moves you make. I disagree. I've heard people say bring in people from other teams, get people off the street, bring in people off of other people's teams and XYZ. I don't believe you can do that at this point and have them come in and consistently be able to play for us soon. Maybe in the long term, yes, but we need to do some things right away. So I'm totally on board with this, and I'm hoping for some big things from Cory James.
Yes, again, I'm looking at this from the standpoint of, yes, he's a little inexperienced, especially with inside this defense and the NFL, but we saw in the preseason that this guy has great ball skills. He's got great instincts. He's a good tackler, and that's something that we need to focus on moving forward. And the thing that stuck out to me in the preseason was his ability, because of his size, to really drop back his coverage and protect the middle of the field. And I think that's something that's going to help, again, a guy like Reggie Nelson. We're hearing this eye violation term being floated around. And like I said, the only thing that I could come up with is, is Reggie Nelson too worried about the running back and the tight end in the middle of the field? He's trying to do too much back there. He's supposed to be covering Sean Smith's back, but he knows that there's a weakness in the middle of the field, and he might have to redirect his movements towards the middle of the field because we're getting scorched there so bad, against the tight ends. So, again, if you could put a guy like Cory James in the middle, and let's predict and expect some mistakes made by Cory James, but at the same time, I think there could be some strength there, especially attacking the run at the line of scrimmage, as well as dropping back and at least taking the lane away. Even if his coverage is still going to be a little off, he could drop deep enough back into coverage. He showed that he understands that part of the game, and I think that helps the safeties, and I think it also helps a guy like Malcolm Smith even, who has been criticized a little bit the last 2 weeks for being out of place. But again, I think Malcolm Smith is trying to cover for Heaney as well. And I know it really sounds that I'm severely down on Heaney. That's really not the case. I really believe in the kid's speed, his playmaking ability. He's got good football instincts too. I'd rather see this guy on the outside. You brought up a great point about Miles Burris and that being one of his strengths. Well, I think Heaney kind of fits that mold, except for Heaney's got a lot more football instinct and an incredibly more amount of speed that we could utilize that on the outside. I even mentioned in the live after show this week that, maybe if you're going to give Malcolm Smith the green sticker, that you slap him in the middle. Just something needs to change, obviously, in the middle of this defense, and it starts with Ben Heaney. So to me, this is the biggest move that we can make on this defense. And is it going to pay large dividends? I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to tell you, yep, that's pretty much the answer right there, but I can't. But it just makes sense when I'm looking at it right now. Cory James is a more prototypical type middle linebacker just from a size standpoint. So, maybe we can get a little more out of that position. Your final thoughts, Pirate?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not down on Ben Heaney either. I agree the eye violation parts probably are coming from the fact that some of these guys are being asked to do more than they should be asked to do. It's one thing for your coaching staff to say, go make a play. Well, if I've got 3 different responsibilities, it's not an alibi to say I was supposed to cover this portion of the field, but I'm also supposed to help out with Sean Smith in the short zone area over here, and Ben Heaney was getting run out of the play, and I was the only guy left, so there was a big hole in the middle of the defense. Is it an alibi? I suppose. I don't know. Is it an eye violation? I suppose. I don't know. But you can't, I don't think you can look at any of these guys and say, hey, it's all your fault. Again, I think that we're not playing to the strength of the talent that we have, and if we can do that, I think they can shore up this defense, and they can do it fairly quickly.
Absolutely, and I think this is the key as we move forward. I look at it from this standpoint. The personnel changes we talked about in this segment, Raider Nation, is not going to fix this defense overnight. There's still going to be some problems, but what I do think is that this is going to allow, like we talked about, guys for Reggie Nelson to play a little faster, and cover what he's supposed to be covering without worrying about certain other things. But moving forward, I think this is step one. I mean, we're not looking for this to be a top-rated defense at this point. We just need them to be as close to average as possible. All right, Raider Nation, this is going to wrap up our show for today. This has been brought to you by the Will to Win broadcast. You are watching the W2W review. And make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at the Will to Win. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can email us at thew2w@gmail.com. That is thew2w@gmail.com. For the Raider Pirate, I am the Oakland Knight, and you guys stay Raider strong.